Clara Westwood had built her life on one simple rule: never need anyone. At 36, she was the youngest woman to control a logistics empire stretching across 3 continents. Ships, warehouses, contracts worth billions, everything moved when she said so. People called her the Iron Architect. They said she never smiled. They said she never slipped. Tonight proved them wrong. The annual Westwood Global Summit filled the Grand Orion Hotel with polished shoes, rehearsed laughter, and egos wrapped in designer suits. Crystal lights shimmered above like stars that had been carefully arranged, just like Clara preferred her world. She stood at the podium, calm and precise. 15 years ago, this company began with one warehouse and an impossible dream. Applause followed. Cameras flashed. She nodded once. Controlled. Perfect. But inside something was cracking. The board had voted against her expansion plan that morning. A rare loss. One she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. Someone handed her a glass of champagne. Then another. She didn't remember deciding to drink them. By 10:30 the room felt louder than it should. The lights warmer. Her heels pressed painfully into the marble floor. That's when Daniel Brooks noticed. He always did. Daniel stood near the edge of the ballroom, tablet in hand, quietly monitoring logistics. Arrivals, departures, VIP timing. He had worked under Clara for almost 3 years. Not as her assistant, not as an executive, but as the man who made impossible schedules work. 42. Widowed. 1 daughter. No ambition beyond stability. He saw Clara sway just slightly as she turned to greet an investor. He moved before anyone else reacted. "Ms. Westwood," Daniel said gently, appearing beside her, "your car is ready whenever you'd like." "I'm fine," Clara replied too quickly. She tried to take another step. The floor tilted. Daniel's hand steadied her elbow. Firm. Respectful. No hesitation. Her breath caught. No one had touched her like that in years. "Let's get you some air," he said quietly. She should have refused. She should have commanded control back into place. Instead she nodded. They exited through a private corridor. Cold Chicago air cut across her face, sharp and honest. She inhaled deeply, but the dizziness didn't fade. The car ride passed in silence. City lights streaked across the windows like memories she didn't have time to process. When they reached her penthouse, Daniel guided her inside with the same care he used when handling fragile cargo. Attentive, never crossing a line. Her home was immaculate. Modern. Empty. She sat on the edge of the bed, heels discarded, head bowed. "You should rest," Daniel said. He turned to leave. "Stay," Clara whispered. The word surprised them both. "Just until I fall asleep." Daniel hesitated. He thought of Lily. Of promises. Of boundaries. "I'll stay in the chair," he said finally. Clara lay back, still dressed, eyes closing as exhaustion claimed her. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Daniel remained seated, watching the city breathe through glass walls. When he finally stood to leave, something slipped from his coat pocket. A photograph. It landed softly on the nightstand. Daniel froze. The photo was old. Creased. 2 college students standing outside a snow-covered campus library. One of them was Clara. The other was him. He picked it up, heart heavy. She had never recognized him. He placed the photo beside her bed, along with a small folded note. Then he left. Clara woke to sunlight and regret. Her head throbbed. Memory came in fragments. The gala. Daniel. The ride home. Then she saw it. The photograph. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it. The girl in the picture was younger. Softer. But unmistakably her. Her breath caught. She unfolded the note. "I stayed until I knew you were safe. You deserved that much. D." The room felt suddenly too quiet. Clara Westwood, billionaire, controller of worlds, had just discovered a past she didn't remember, and a man who remembered her too well. Clara Westwood did not panic easily. In boardrooms she thrived on chaos. When deals collapsed and investors shouted, she stayed calm. Fear was a weakness she had trained herself to bury long ago. But the photograph in her hand made her chest tighten in a way no failed deal ever had. She sat on the edge of her bed, morning light spilling across the room, staring at the image as if it might explain itself. 2 young people stood in front of a red brick university library. Snow dusted the steps behind them. The girl was her, 20 years old, hair loose, eyes hopeful. Not the woman she had become. And the man beside her. Her stomach twisted. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Same eyes. Same jawline. Same quiet seriousness. Daniel Brooks. Her operations manager. The man who had brought her home last night. The man who had stayed without crossing a line, and left without asking for anything. Her fingers turned the photo over. Winter 2007. A memory stirred, faint but persistent. Long night studying. Coffee gone cold. A library that stayed open past midnight. And someone who had helped her once. Someone quiet. Someone kind. Clara stood abruptly, heart pounding. She needed answers. The Westwood Global headquarters rose above downtown Chicago like a monument to order and ambition. Glass, steel, and silence. By the time Clara arrived, she had rebuilt her armor. Perfect posture. Sharp suit. Controlled expression. No one noticed anything was wrong. She rode the private elevator to the executive floor, eyes fixed ahead. When the doors opened, she saw Daniel already at his desk, reviewing reports with his usual focus. He looked normal. As if last night had never happened. "Good morning, Ms. Westwood," he said, standing immediately. Professional. Distant. Her grip tightened around the photograph hidden inside her folder. "Good morning," she replied evenly. She walked into her office without another word. Minutes passed. Emails blurred together. Numbers lost meaning. Finally, she pressed the intercom. "Daniel," she said, "come in." The door opened quietly. He stood where he always did, hands loosely clasped, posture respectful. "Yes." Clara didn't sit. She walked around her desk and placed the photograph between them. Daniel's eyes dropped to it. For a fraction of a second, his composure cracked. It was subtle, but she saw it. "You left this," Clara said. He exhaled slowly. "It fell from my pocket." "This is from my university," she continued. "From before Westwood Global. From before everything." Daniel nodded. "And the man in this photo," she said softly, "is you." Silence filled the room. "Yes," he admitted. Clara felt something shift inside her. Not anger, not relief, but something heavier. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you have this?" Daniel hesitated, then spoke with quiet honesty. "I worked part-time at the campus library," he said. "You came in almost every night during exam season. Always studying. Always alone." Clara closed her eyes briefly. She remembered now. A man who helped her find books. Who walked her to the door when it snowed. "You never said anything," she said. "When you applied here. When I hired you. You didn't recognize me," Daniel replied. "And I didn't think it mattered." "But it mattered enough for you to keep the photo," she said. "Yes." The simplicity of the answer stunned her. "You stayed with me last night," Clara continued. "You could have called security. Or a driver." "You asked me to stay," Daniel said gently. "And you weren't well. You left," she said. "I had to." Clara's voice dropped. "Why?" Daniel met her gaze, steady, unwavering. "Because you wouldn't have remembered choosing it." The words hit her harder than any accusation. "You respected me," she whispered. "I did," he said. "And I still do." She looked away, throat tight. "How long?" she asked. "How long have you known it was me?" "From the interview," Daniel admitted. "The moment you walked in. And you still took the job." "I needed stability," he said simply. "I had just lost my wife. I had full custody of my daughter. I wasn't looking for anything else." Daughter. She had known the fact, but never considered the weight behind it. "I didn't expect you to remember me," he continued. "And when you didn't, I thought, maybe it was better that way." Clara felt something ache inside her chest. She had built an empire, and somehow erased a part of herself along the way. "Daniel," she said quietly, "why did you stay last night?" He didn't answer immediately. "Because," he said finally, "I couldn't walk away from someone who once trusted me." Her breath caught. She reached for the photograph, then stopped. "I'm keeping this," she said. Daniel nodded. "Of course." He turned to leave. "Daniel," she said, stopping him. "Yes." "Thank you." He paused, then nodded once and left. The rest of the day passed like a blur. Meetings. Calls. Decisions. But Clara's mind kept returning to the photo now locked in her desk drawer. She had forgotten him. And he had remembered her. Late that evening, the office was nearly empty when Clara stepped outside her office again. Daniel was still there, finishing reports under the dim glow of his desk lamp. "You work too much," she said. He looked up, surprised. "So do you." "Come inside," she said. "I want to talk." "Not about work." He hesitated, then followed. Clara closed the door. "I remembered you," she said. "The library. The book on corporate finance. You stayed late to help me find it." Daniel smiled faintly. You were stressed. I always was. And still are, he said gently. She nodded. I spent years becoming someone unstoppable, Clara said. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing people. Daniel listened without interrupting. I don't want to make that mistake again, she continued. He looked at her carefully. What are you saying? She took a breath. Can we have dinner? She asked. Not as my employee. Not as my manager. Just as two people. Silence stretched between them. I have a daughter, Daniel said finally. She comes first. I understand, Clara replied, and meant it. He studied her, searching for something real. Let me think about it, he said. She nodded. That's fair. Daniel turned to leave. At the door he paused. For what it's worth, he said, I never forgot you. But remembering someone doesn't mean you're ready to reopen the past. I know, Clara said softly. The door closed. She stood alone, heart racing, not from fear, but from hope. Daniel Brooks did not sleep that night. He lay awake on the narrow couch in his apartment, staring at the faint cracks in the ceiling as the city hummed outside his window. Chicago never truly slept, but tonight neither could he. Clara Westwood's voice echoed in his mind. Can we have dinner? Not as his boss. Not as a billionaire. Just as two people. He turned his head and glanced toward the bedroom door. Inside, Lily slept peacefully, her nightlight casting soft stars across the wall. Her school backpack rested by the door, already packed for the morning. Everything he did revolved around her. And that was exactly why Clara scared him. At 6:30 sharp, Lily padded into the kitchen in mismatched socks, her hair a wild mess of curls. Dad? She yawned, climbing onto a chair. Did you forget to sleep again? Daniel smiled tiredly. What makes you say that? You do the quiet face when you don't sleep, she said seriously. He laughed despite himself. Breakfast first, he said, sliding a plate of toast toward her. She eyed him suspiciously. You're thinking too much. She wasn't wrong. Do you like your job? Lily asked suddenly. Daniel paused. Why? Because you look different when you talk about it, she said. Like you're standing very straight. He considered that. I do like my job, he said carefully. It lets me take care of you. She nodded, satisfied. But, she added, you don't smile much there. That one landed deeper. Clara Westwood arrived at the office already braced for rejection. She told herself she didn't care. That if Daniel said no, she would accept it and move on. She had done that her whole life. But when she saw him walking through the glass doors, calm and steady as always, her pulse quickened despite her discipline. He looked conflicted. Good morning, she said. Good morning, he replied. There was a pause. I've thought about your invitation, Daniel said quietly. Her fingers tightened around her tablet. And? I'll have dinner with you, he said. But on one condition. She looked at him. Name it. It's not a date, he said. It's a conversation. No expectations. She nodded immediately. Agreed. And, he added, it ends early. I go home to my daughter. I wouldn't ask you not to, Clara said. Something eased in his expression. Tonight, he said. 7. I'll meet you, she replied. No, Daniel said gently. Let me choose the place. She smiled, a real one. All right. The restaurant Daniel chose was nothing like the places Clara usually visited. No private rooms. No velvet ropes. No hushed reverence. It was a small Italian place tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat. Warm lights. Scratched wooden tables. The smell of garlic and bread filled the air. Clara hesitated at the door. This is nice, she said. Daniel smiled faintly. It's honest. They sat across from each other, menus untouched. For a moment, neither spoke. This is where Lily and I come on Fridays, Daniel said. She likes the pasta. Clara's chest tightened. I didn't mean to intrude on that. You didn't, he said. I wanted you to see the life I have. She nodded slowly. I don't know much about children, Clara admitted. I grew up surrounded by staff and schedules. I know, Daniel said. That's why I needed you to understand something. He leaned forward slightly. My daughter has already lost one parent. I won't risk her stability. I wouldn't ask you to, Clara said. But being around you, he continued, changes things. She swallowed. How? You make people orbit you, he said honestly. Careers. Decisions. Lives. She flinched, not offended but exposed. I don't want Lily to be an afterthought, he said. She would never be, Clara replied firmly. He studied her face, searching for truth beyond confidence. What do you want from me? He asked. Clara didn't answer right away. I want to know who I was before I became untouchable, she said. And I think you remember her. Daniel's voice softened. I do. Later that night, Daniel stood outside his apartment building, keys in hand. Thank you for dinner, Clara said. It was better than I expected, he admitted. She smiled. May I ask something? He nodded. Can I meet Lily? She asked quietly. Daniel stiffened. Not yet, he said gently but firmly. She nodded immediately. I understand. I didn't say no forever, he added. Just not yet. That mattered more than she let on. The following weeks changed something neither of them could fully name. They didn't rush. They talked, over coffee, over walks through quiet streets, over shared silences that felt surprisingly comfortable. Clara listened more than she spoke. She learned about Lily's favorite books, about Daniel's fear of failing as a father, about nights he stayed awake worrying about bills, school projects, and whether he was doing enough. And Daniel learned about Clara's loneliness, about the pressure of always being strong, about the silence of penthouses and victories that felt hollow. One evening as they walked along the river, Daniel stopped. There's something you should know, he said. What? Clara asked. My daughter knows about you, he said. She asked why I've been smiling more. Clara's breath caught. And what did you say? I said I made a friend, he replied. She smiled softly. She wants to meet you, he added. Her heart skipped. But, he said carefully, only if you're ready to meet her as she is. Not as an idea. Not as a responsibility. I want to try, Clara said. Even if I'm terrible at it. He laughed quietly. That's honesty. Lily appreciates that. The meeting happened on a Sunday afternoon. No pressure. No introductions. Just a park. Lily sat on the swings, kicking her legs as Daniel stood nearby. Clara approached slowly, hands folded, heart pounding harder than any boardroom negotiation. Hi, Clara said. Lily tilted her head. You're tall. Clara blinked, then laughed. I've been told. Do you know how to push a swing? Lily asked. I can learn, Clara replied. That was enough. They spent the afternoon laughing, talking, existing. Clara listened. Learned. Failed. Tried again. And when Lily hugged her goodbye without warning, something inside Clara broke open. Later that night, alone in her penthouse, Clara stared at the city lights. She had spent her life building something untouchable. But tonight she realized something terrifying and beautiful. For the first time. She didn't want control. She wanted connection. Clara Westwood had spent her entire life mastering one skill above all others. Control. Control over markets. Control over narratives. Control over herself. But control had a weakness she had never needed to face before. People. It began with a photograph. Not the old one Daniel had dropped, but a new one, sharp and unforgiving. Clara noticed it during a morning briefing when her head of communications paused mid-sentence. The room went quiet. A large screen behind them flickered to life. There she was, walking through Lincoln Park, laughing. And beside her, Daniel. The image was innocent. Too innocent. The kind of moment she never allowed herself in public. This was posted an hour ago, her communications director said carefully. Someone recognized him. Clara's stomach tightened. Recognized him how? She asked. Not as an executive, the woman replied. As your employee. The word landed hard. Who took it? Clara asked. A freelance blogger, another voice answered. They track power couples. Rising narratives. Clara's jaw clenched. And the headline? The screen refreshed. Billionaire CEO secretly dating employee, conflict of interest? The room buzzed with tension. We can bury it, someone said quickly. Issue a denial. Frame it as a casual meeting. Clara raised a hand. Give me a moment, she said. She stood and walked to the window, the city stretching endlessly below. Daniel hadn't signed up for this. Lily hadn't signed up for this. Her phone buzzed. Daniel. She didn't answer. Not yet. Daniel saw the headline during lunch. A coworker's phone buzzed. A whisper followed. Then another. By the time he reached his desk, the damage was done. He stared at the screen, his chest tightening. He had lived quietly for years. Carefully. Invisibly. Now his name was everywhere. Not for his work, but for standing beside a powerful woman. His phone vibrated again. Claire. He closed his eyes. Lily noticed something was wrong the moment Daniel picked her up from school. "You're quiet," she said from the back seat. "Just thinking," he replied. "About Clara?" she asked. He glanced at her in the mirror. "Why do you ask?" "Because the other parents were whispering," Lily said. "They showed pictures." His grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What pictures?" "Of you and her," Lily said. "They said she's famous." Daniel pulled over. He turned to face her. "Lily," he said gently, "none of that matters. What matters is how you feel." She thought for a moment. "I like her," she said simply. "But I don't like people talking." Neither did he. Clara arrived at Daniel's apartment that evening unannounced. Not in a car with tinted windows. On foot. When Daniel opened the door, his expression was guarded. "I should have warned you," she said immediately. "Yes," he replied quietly. "You should have." They stood in silence. "I never meant for this to touch your daughter," Clara said. "Or your life." "But it did," he said. "And now Lily's asking questions I'm not ready to answer." Clara swallowed hard. "Tell me what you need," she said. "I'll do it." He studied her face. "I need you to protect her," he said. "Even if that means stepping away from us." The words cut deep. "You'd ask me to disappear?" she asked. "I'd ask you to choose," he replied. She nodded slowly. "I will," she said. The next morning Clara stood before the press. Cameras flashed. "This relationship has been mischaracterized," she said calmly. "Mr. Brooks is a valued employee and a respected single father. Any implication of impropriety is false." A reporter shouted, "Are you dating him?" Clara paused. "Yes," she said. The room gasped. "But," she continued, "he will no longer report directly to me. Effective immediately, he has been transferred to a separate division with full protection and privacy." Daniel watched the broadcast in silence. She had chosen. And she had done it publicly. Lily saw it too. "She looks brave," Lily said. Daniel smiled faintly. "She is." That night, Clara visited the park again. No cameras. No headlines. Just a woman learning what it meant to stand beside someone instead of above them. Daniel joined her on the bench. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I did," she replied. "Because power means nothing if you use it to protect yourself instead of others." He looked at her, something shifting between them. "You're still learning," he said. "So are you," she replied. They sat in silence, the world moving on without them. For the first time that felt enough. The billionaire stood alone in the quiet house, holding the old picture and the note in his hands. The words still hurt, even after reading them many times. "I'm leaving so you don't have to choose." He finally understood the truth. That night long ago was not a mistake. It was a turning point. She had loved him, but she loved her child more. She chose sacrifice instead of comfort. She chose pain so her son could grow without fear. The single dad he once met was never weak. He was strong in a quiet way. The billionaire took a deep breath and made a decision. He did not send money. He did not send lawyers. He went himself. When he knocked on the door, the single dad was shocked. Years had passed, but the memories were still there. They talked for hours. There was no anger. Only honesty. The billionaire apologized for disappearing. The single dad admitted why he left. Then the child walked into the room. The billionaire felt something change inside him. For the first time he did not feel rich. He felt human. In the end, the goodbye note did not end a story. It completed one chapter. And opened another. The weeks after that meeting were not easy. Healing never is. The billionaire began visiting often. Not as a savior. Not as a rich man. Just as a person who wanted to be present. He learned simple things. School schedules, quiet dinners, late-night worries. Things money could not buy. The single dad watched carefully. Trust was slow. But effort was real. One evening the child asked a simple question. "Are you going to disappear too?" The room went silent. The billionaire knelt down and answered honestly, "I don't know the future. But I know I won't run anymore." That promise mattered. Over time, laughter returned to the house. Not loud. Not perfect. But real. The billionaire realized something important. All his success meant nothing without connection. And the single dad realized something too. Accepting help was not weakness. They rebuilt step by step. No headlines. No drama. Just humans choosing courage over fear. In the end, the story was never about wealth. It was about responsibility. About staying when leaving is easier.